I mean, that is the trade-off. You either get wolves in a valley, or you get a cool castle, but you get a Dracula.
So pick your poison.
Pick your poison, baby. I got to be honest with my energy right now, David.
Oh, okay.
I'm sitting in the ramen slump right this very second.
The ramen slump. So you
I'm in
had
the
ramen
slump,
and you're feeling the starch.
Here's what happened, and I got to keep it 100 with you.
Yes.
I was a very brave boy and had a smoothie for lunch. That's a thing I do every now and then. Just like blast the system with chia seeds.
Oh, a chia seed smoothie, man.
Yeah, just, got to get them fiber and omega-3s.
Bro, root that, baby.
I was hungry. And I was like, you know what? Just a regular old normal serving from Arashi Ramen. Shouts out Arashi Ramen in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Just one normal serving is not quite enough. I'm always just like, could I just get like one more bit of it?
No.
And so the alternative is that you can add another order of noodles to it. If you want.
Just noodles.
Yeah, so it's just like more noodles in the ramen, right?
Okay.
But it's too fucking many noodles. Like, I gotta be real, it's too many noodles.
So you ordered the double noodles.
I did double nudes, and I'm feeling the effects of it now, David.
You did too many nudes.
I did too many nudes, and now I've got too many.
The price.
Yeah, I'm paying the price. What rhymes with? I had too many nudes, and now I've got the blues. Welcome to Video Game Podtimism. It's the Optimist video game variety show where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. My name is Chase.
And my name is David. So noodles make you sad? Too many noodles make you sad, or just being too full makes you sad?
Too many noodles makes me sleepier than normal. You can, I think for the record keepers, and there's so many out there, I think we can kind of qualify this as a Dayquil episode.
Ooh.
Because I'm altered in my state a little bit.
A double noodle equals one Dayquil, is what you're saying.
A little bit of a Dayquil, yeah.
Wow. All noodles and no play make Chase a sleepy boy.
You've been playing video games? I know you have. I saw you in person. I watched you play video games.
You watched me play video games, but I have a couple of surprises for you as well, Chase.
Yes, absolutely. To me.
Let's see. You want me to start off with the one that we did play quite a bit of together?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I've been playing Resident Evil 8 Village.
Oh yeah. I forgot.
You forgot
in
we were
that
playing
moment,
that one?
I was like, what did we play together? You talk about Smash Bros? Like, totally forgot.
We did play Smash
Resident Evil Village. What's up with this?
Yeah, this game is very good. I have not played this one before. It came out 3 years ago now? It's been a minute.
Yeah, my instinct says 2, but 2? I mean, who knows?
2 or 3, what is time anyways? But I never played it before. I've been playing and enjoying all the remakes recently of all the Resident Evil games, but I touched 7 a bit. Mm-hmm. 7 was very scary and was kind of hard to find the energy to want to play at some points.
Yeah,
for me
especially
personally.
That first couple hours are pretty brutal as far as
very
go.
hard. Very hard to get through. Still great in its bombastic return to form for Resident Evil, but not something that was easy to play for me. But this one, it feels much more akin to a Resident Evil 4 in the tone it's trying to strike.
Mm-hmm.
Gives you those moments where you can kind of breathe in between the scary bits, and it gives much better feeling of gunplay in this one as well. So you don't feel quite so helpless all the time. You know, you think kick some ass in this game, that's for sure. But they also are. But even then, it's still, when it gets scary, it gets pretty damn scary, because they do a good job of making these kind of set pieces and giving you all of this extra these new scenarios that you find yourself in that are like, oh, I don't know how to deal with this. Like when you go through the tall grass in the village, you're like, oh, there's gonna be something in here and I cannot see for shit, right?
Yeah.
Or like when you go to the doll maker's house, right, and they take away all your guns.
Yep.
Also, yeah, when you said that part is terrifying, it absolutely is.
It's
that
so
was
scary.
That part was messed up. That was shocking, absolutely shocking. And I had seen a picture of what follows you in that game. but I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that is a horror. And then I play the game and I find it. I'm like, oh, it's from here. This is terrifying. So yeah, that was absolutely shocking. So they do a really good job of keeping you on edge, but then also giving you these moments where you just feel like the gas. They take their foot off the gas for a little bit, so you can kind of breathe. You can explore a little bit. You can do more like video gamey stuff, kind of meta gamey stuff. Look at the map. How do I get to this area that's blocked off from me right now? Because I want to try and get this item over there. Do I have everything I need to do that?
Yeah.
Can I do that? So it gives you these nice breathing points, and I don't think Resident Evil 7 really did that for me. So this game is much easier to kind of jump back into in comparison.
Yeah.
I also feel like this game learned that lesson from Resident Evil 7, and I think it also learned a lesson from Resident Evil 6, which we're going to talk about more in the later in the episode.
We are. Yeah.
In that it gives you like 4 different types of scary game to play with the different areas, and Resident Evil 6 had 4 different stories that it tells you. But this one just feels so much more cohesive and and thought out and considered, as opposed to it just being a menu screen in Resident Evil 6 where you just like choose a main character to play and you just go through that story. Not to say that that is necessarily bad. You could make that feel good, but I just think they nailed it in this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of glue that keeps it together there.
Yeah.
Whereas, in 6, it's just kind of like, let me just pick one of these and we can try that rather than like, connecting up, like there's backstory to why this place feels the way it does, or why there's kind of like almost a genre shift in a lot of these like kind of areas that you're going to. Yeah. Like first one's very classic Resident Evil, but the second one's like almost PT or Amnesia.
I got a lot of Amnesia vibes from it because you don't have any weapons or anything. You're just running around, just trying to figure out puzzles. And I got escape room vibes from it too. Like especially with the mannequin that you have to disassemble and like figure out all these different ways to get out. Yeah,
it plays much more like a puzzle game in that moment, which again is just, it feels like a flex on their part of like, we can make this fun too. Yeah. Which is cool. Like again, I think Resident Evil has always done the kind of genre shifts because in the beginning it's very spooky in most of the games, but by the end of it is just kind of like some sort of industrial or scientific zombie place that you're running through. Yeah. And that's always happened, but it's a lot more distinct here because you do get to go to these like different places. But again, they made it work in this one, whereas in 6, it was a little bit more of a challenge.
Yeah, 6 was a little bit more of a challenge. And we had played this game right after playing 6. Yes. And something else, a couple other things that really stood out in comparison to that one, just their ability to build tension in the beginning of the game just really was not there in the same way in 6. And their ability to make me like care about these characters, even ones who I just meet and get killed pretty quickly. Like I cared about all those people who died in the beginning of in Resident Evil 8, whereas there are characters in Resident Evil 6 who you spend hours with and a long time thinking about and hearing about, and then they die and you just don't care at all.
You're like, what, like, who were they? I don't know who this person was.
Exactly. I'm like, all of a sudden you're this important character and I have no idea who you are. Now you're dead. So it's just, they've really learned a lot about how to make a really good version of their game. And it really shows in this one. It's pretty masterful in a lot of ways of just, like you said, how they're able to do so many different types of genres, and then also how they're just able to suck you in so quickly, just with the atmosphere, and the graphics just stellar. They're so good.
Yeah, it looks really great.
So yeah, really, really enjoying this game. It's quite good. Yeah. A perfect game for October.
Yeah, totally.
Let's see. I've also been playing Hauntii.
Yeah. This was the kind of like indie black and white game. Am I right in thinking that it's black and white?
Not only black and white, but fairly monochromatic for most of it. But yeah, this Hauntii is a like top-down kind of what genre of game would that be? Like Zelda-like ish in a way. Adventure game. Yeah, where you take on the guise of a spirit, or you play as a spirit, kind of trying to find their way in the afterlife. So yeah, it has, first of all, great, exceptional visuals. It looks so good. And not only does it look good, but it's just, the animations are so smooth and bring so much character and personality to the world and the different characters in it. Yeah. It's just a joy to kind of walk through this area, this space that they've created. So great job on that.
Is this like, I honestly don't know a ton about this. Is this like are you fighting anybody, or is this just kind of like a puzzle game? Like
you do
what's
fight.
The deal? Okay.
It's actually kind of like a twin stick shooter in a way.
Interesting,
actually.
Yeah.
So left stick moves your character around, and then right stick you can fire out ectoplasm, and it just fires out in a straight line in the direction that the right stick is facing. So you can do it in all 360 degrees and you can move around and do that kind of stuff as well. And then you also have the ability to haunt things. So if you shoot something for long enough, and most things in the environment you can haunt, you will possess it, and then you can move it around, you can shake it, you can make things fall over, you can make things go up into the air and unlock different areas to walk around in. You can make things like fall onto other enemies that you're fighting, right? Or open a chest, what have you. So it has this fun element of like, there's a big tree over there, but there's like if you step into darkness, you'll eventually die. Like the screen will change and warp, and like creatures will come for you. Yeah. But they hide, or not hide, but they show you trees or other things you can haunt in the background. So you're like, okay, how do I figure out how to get there? And it usually is haunt something, it opens up a new path, then you kind of keep on following to get to that spot that you saw in the first part, first off, right?
Yeah.
So it gives you this fun ability to follow your own imagination and curiosity to find different ways and different little power-ups and collectibles throughout the world, which is fun.
Yeah, gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah, but it's really good. I'm really enjoying it so far. Yeah. It does a really good job of creating a forlorn tone because the game begins with someone dying, and then you see the earth, and then you see just this one strand of light like leaving the earth, and then it lands into the underworld, into the afterlife, I should say. And that's your character, right? It has this indifference towards death, which is kind of refreshing. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like it's very clear that you have died and you have no recollection of your past life, and they give you the something that you're collecting throughout the game are your memories, or the ability to remember your memories from the past. So you're going around trying to find all these things. Yeah. So there's this profound sense of loss and sadness, but also it kind of feels like the first day of high school in a way, in that you don't really have like a clear definition of who you are. You don't really know anyone else, or like how things are happening in this place that you now find yourself in and you can't leave from, which is kind of scary, but also exciting. And there's this sense of like there's potential in this new area to do something different and interesting and new as well. Yeah. So while there is like this sense of sadness, there's also this sense of hope almost of a new life, which is pretty cool that they're able to just give you that through what they're showing you and having you do through the game, as opposed to like telling you what's going on. Yeah. It
reminds me a little bit of how Grease handles like the relationship with loss in a way, where like I wouldn't call it direct, but I also wouldn't call it indirect. Like you get the sense that the person in the game that you're playing as is dealing with some kind of grief in some way, but it's not like explicitly giving you text of like, here's what happened in the real world or whatever, but that it does also come to kind of like, I would say a hopeful place, but it takes you sort of like playing the game to get there. But yeah, it just kind of sounds like connected in some way there, the approach.
Yeah. I've never played Grease, but that's always been on my list. I think it's on the PlayStation Network this month. Maybe I should give it a
really?
whirl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a great episode about .zip that I can recommend to you, David.
Ooh. You don't say. Yeah.
It's a good game. It's also pretty short.
Okay. Nice.
Like you can beat it in, I don't know, a handful of hours or something.
That is what that podcast is about, isn't it?
It's the whole deal. Yeah.
It's the whole deal. Go check it.
We just played a game that I don't think it's really a secret, but Anatomy is the game, which is a scary game. It takes like 15, 20 minutes to play. Very short game.
Wow.
Love it. It's very fun.
It's good.
Yeah, it's a good one. Scary as shit, but really good.
Anatomy,
yeah.
Okay.
No jump scares, just good shit.
No jump scares, just good shit. Wow. That's a tagline right there.
Yeah.
But Hauntii is great. Also, the music rocks. It is.
Oh, cool.
It's really good. I would recommend it to pretty much anyone who likes games like Tunic or Death's Door or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very fun.
I should give it a shot. Like the visuals of it really like spoke to me, so I think I should try it.
It's really just a joy to experience. It really is. Really fun so far. Love it. I've also been keeping with my spooky theme. I've been playing Vampire Survivors.
Oh, wow. Hell yeah. Have you played this before?
I've never played this game.
Okay.
I've never played this game. Welcome. I had always looked at videos of it and I was just very skeptical. I was always very skeptical. I know everyone like talks about it in very high regards and I get that, but it just never looked like my thing.
Yeah.
But
it looks overwhelming.
It looks overwhelming.
Like too much.
The graphics look like kind of whatever, right? But I was just decided to take a flyer on it, downloaded it, started it up, and it took me all about of like 1 second to realize what the appeal is because this game rocks. This game is really good. Yeah. About 2 hours later, I was like, oh, what the fuck just happened? Where have I been this whole time? Just been surviving the vampires is what I've been doing. Yeah. So yeah, it's so hard to kind of explain what is good about this game because you don't do a whole lot except just move around and then make decisions. But I think that's also kind of where it shines, strangely enough.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the decisions you're making are largely just like what weapons to use.
Yeah.
And or like what upgrades to do.
Yeah.
It's like you're only doing the kind of like deck building in a deck building game or something like that.
Exactly.
And just kind of letting it do its thing.
And then after that, it's just an auto battler and you just don't get tagged. That's it.
Yeah. Which like there is some strategy to it. It's not like you can just sit there.
Yeah.
But like it's far less complicated than like Hades or something as far as like your inputs into the video game, you know?
No, definitely not. And I think it's better for that.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I think this game would be a lot less fun if I had to be like continuously pushing all these buttons at the same time as I'm trying to just move around the map. But yeah, I love the slow crescendo of action, of how it just starts off with like a trickle of enemies, and then just as you get stronger and get more items, it just continually throws harder enemies, bigger waves of enemies at you.
Yep.
All the different levels seem so similar in a lot of ways, but then when you start actually playing the game, you're like, oh, this actually makes a big difference in how I play.
Yeah.
Like it having these like big blocks that are in the middle, or it being side scrolling instead of being just omnidirectional, right?
Yeah.
So that's all really good. I love all the power-ups. The power-ups all feel so significant and good.
Yeah.
Like they really make a difference in your gameplay when you get like a big slew of power-ups. Like the meta progression is just tight. Very good.
Yeah. Every time you play it, it feels like that's the only possible combination that could have worked for me in that case. Of course, I'm sure that's not true, but like just being like, okay, I got the garlic really early so I can keep people away from me a little bit.
Oh, the garlic's so good.
It's so helpful. And then I like got the like lightning bolts or whatever that will strike people far away. And that does a lot of damage, so it kind of softens them up before they get to me. And so like it makes it always feel like I made the best decision I could in that situation, which is kind of miraculous in a way. And each run is like, wow, that was a really cool build that we landed on just now.
Yeah.
And just the sheer fact of like every now and then you'll get like kind of a discovery of how two powers like fit together of like, oh, this makes it do something else now is just like
a lot of fun.
That's so sick.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of hidden interactions in the game, which I think is so fun to discover. They do that really well. It looks like an NES type game, and it has those kind of secret hidden things you just have to find out by playing the game that are, I think, indicative of that era, right? So yeah, a lot of fun. The movement itself is fun. Like just dodging the zombies is a great time. And I also feel like I've been training for this for a while by playing Madden in a way, which is weird. It feels like I'm a running back or a wide receiver in Madden. And you got to find the hole and hit it hard. Right? When you see your opening, you got to go for daylight and just don't look back. It's a lot of fun to dodge and dip and dive around these zombies while you're just smashing them. And the game you play with them of, okay, how can I get the gems right now to level up and draw them away just enough to sneak behind them to get stronger, right? So it's a very surprising game to me that it sucked me in so hard, but I now realize it and take back anything I never said anything bad about the game. I thought some things about the game, so I take back all those thoughts I had about the game because I was being a fool. This game rocks. It's really fun.
It happens every now and then where like I think that I will not like something just kind of based on the visuals of it.
Yeah.
Which is like, I know not to judge books by their covers, but I do that sometimes. Like, just of like either not even the graphical style, but just like, oh, that doesn't look like something I'm going to like, you know? And it's, I think part of the power of the medium that like it is so different when you play it. Like looking at it and watching videos is like, yeah, that looks okay, but it's so different when you actually like pull up the controller and start to do it. And you're like, okay, no, I understand why this is fun.
Yeah. Once you're in the cockpit, you're like, oh yeah, sure. I get it now. No, that's it. That's all I've been playing. Chase, what have you been playing?
Cool. So you and I played a bunch of games.
We did.
When we were together, which we're going to do something with all of those. I figured us doing like a good games for like 8 weeks in a row of all the games that we played might be a little onerous.
Yeah.
To remember like what was Snake Rattle and Roll like? Although that one specifically is kind of hard to forget.
That one was something else.
It was a very bizarre game, but we're going to do something with that. The thing that I really want to talk about that I am so surprised by, and I'm just sort of baffled by it, is the Silent Hill 2 remake, David.
You've been playing this.
I've been playing this. I played a lot of this. David, I am shocked to report to you. Yes, it's good.
It's good against all expectations.
Everybody who I have talked to who like have talked about this game or even just the lead up to it, they're like, I don't know, man. Like it's not looking great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was just a consequence of the marketing. Like the trailers looked a little funky and the stuff that they were showing made it look very like actiony. And all signs pointed to like, maybe this is not gonna do very well. Mm-hmm. You know, like this is made by a company called Blooper Team. And the last thing that I played from them was called The Medium. And it was like a good game, but I wasn't like over the moon about it. I think I talked about it on the show.
They made The Medium, huh?
They did, yeah. Okay. Also Layers of Fear. I don't know if you fucked with that game at all.
Oh, no, I didn't.
But yeah, I was just kind of convinced like, no way is this going to be good. And like, to be clear, for anybody who hasn't played a Silent Hill game or doesn't know sort of the lore behind Silent Hill 2, this is like a pillar of the horror game genre.
Yes.
Silent Hill specifically is it unto itself, but 2 I think is very much like well regarded as maybe one of the better horror games, like period.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the person, they might say the best horror game. But it came out in the mid 2000s. It was a PS2 game, so like there's a lot of things that come along with that, and so I think it's not unreasonable to think like, oh, this could be due for a remake. But a lot of what made Silent Hill 2 so amazing is like so much of the tone and the style, the bizarre voice acting that's in that game. Mm-hmm. You and I did an episode on it, I think 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And like, I loved it. I thought this was like such an incredible game, and also thought like this is still pretty good in this day and age, especially the character writing and the story and everything. I'm not going to spoil anything here because like there's probably a slew of new people who might be checking this game out for the first time.
Yeah.
But without like giving anything away, I thought the narrative was incredible and like really, really interesting just from like a story perspective and a perspective of like somebody who plays a lot of video games and being some of the typical like tropes of how to tell a story in video games get turned over a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was fascinating. But yeah, it's in looking at like, how would I remake this? So much of it is like, that's going to be really tough because so much of what made it look so like grimy and disgusting was like how a PlayStation 2 game renders visuals or like the uncanny dialogue in that game of like, it all sounds like these are not humans speaking to each other, you know?
The jank is kind of a feature.
Yes, yeah. And so like, I think that the task of polishing the parts that maybe, you know, would lead to an easier experience while retaining the things that make it really special, that's a really hard thing to do. Like, and you know, you take one look at it and you also see like, oh, they saw the success of Resident Evil and the remakes that they're doing, and they would also like to do that. You know, like the camera's in the same spot, the visuals look really, really similar. Like even James Sunderland, whatever his last name is, even he looks a little bit like Leon now. Like he's a little Leonified at this point. And so like, I don't think it's unrealistic.
In the future, all of your horror game protagonists are just going to be Leon S. Kennedy.
It's all Leons all the way down. Sorry, no thanks, bro.
Is that a Leon line?
That is, yeah. He says it to Ramon at some point.
Oh, it's so good.
So, but I think a really big distinction when you're comparing these two things is that like Resident Evil is an action game. Even though like it may skew more towards horror sometimes, it's like a pretty pulpy video game.
Yeah.
At no point is Resident Evil really saying anything, you know, like it's largely just there as a delivery method of spooks and scares.
Yeah.
Like, and that's fine. Like, I don't think anything's wrong with that. But when you're looking at like, how do I transpose that onto a new console? Like in Resident Evil's case, you really just need to make the game feel pretty good, look pretty good, and like sound pretty good. Like it's really just like pretty normal shit. Not to that's probably underselling the sort of like incredible nature of how those remakes feel now. But I think it's a much harder prospect to be like, okay, let's make a Silent Hill game in that mold, because Silent Hill typically is saying something. Yeah. And you can't just transpose how a game feels to shoot in 2024 with better graphics and hope to say the same thing in a game. You know, like
Sure.
it's not going to go perfect. And so like you do need to be careful with how you transpose those things. And I'm gobsmacked that they did, that they managed to strike that balance. I'll get into sort of the trade-offs that they had to make, but I think that they did find the right give and take of like, okay, we can't make a game look like the PlayStation 2. Like maybe we could, like maybe it's a throwback game, but they're going for the more photorealistic. So how do we balance that with still being like scary, you know? And they did. They did. It's like truly shocking. So just to give a little bit of background about the game, like you're playing as this dude named James Sunderland, who in the beginning of the game, he's like, I got a letter from my wife who's been dead for 3 years. And she told me to meet her in Silent Hill. And so he's arrived at this place in Silent Hill, which there's like sort of loose connections to the first one, but I think it's largely not a direct sequel to the first one.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like it takes place in a similar place. But I again, I'm not a huge enough fan to know like, oh, that's the same house from the first one or whatever. But I think you're largely supposed to take these games independently from one another.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you as James, you kind of like wander into the town and it's like, it's a little spooky, but like kind of just foggy is most of what it is initially. And I will say, mercifully, they nailed the fog. The fog looks good. Good fog. And like that was initially in the beginning of like the PlayStation era, that was a technical limitation. They did the fog because they couldn't render very much. And so they had to like kind of hide the rendering from you as a player. And so they shrouded everything in this kind of like gray mist so that you couldn't see very far. That was also the case in 2. And it, you know, we don't deal with that technical difficulty anymore. So like you could just make it clear as day, but they didn't. They made it look very foggy and very scary, which is like amazing. Like just the feeling of some shambling horror walking out towards you from the mist is like, that happens in this game, and it's really scary still.
Nice.
So that's really, really great. Anyway, you as James start like encountering a couple of people here, the first of whom is named Angela. She is also bizarre immediately, and so is James. Like the encounter that these people have is so strange and just like, I don't really get it. But I think you as the player are supposed to see Angela as kind of like, who is hanging out in this town? Like, what is going on here? And see James is a little bit more like on the level. Yeah. And especially because like you're the fucking video game protagonist. Like, you know, it's weird that he got a letter from his dead wife. Like, that's a little odd. But even he says like, that's nuts. And like, she can't possibly be here, but I'm here, you know? So like maybe you're supposed to interpret it as like this is the way he's dealing with his grief currently or whatever. I think in Silent Hill 2, the original, the dialogue is just delivered in such a bizarre way that you're immediately like, everybody is bizarre. Everybody's weird.
Yeah, everyone's a weirdo.
Yeah, and I think that they have largely made the voice acting more believable. That combined with like removing the kind of visual layer of grime from the game, I can see how probably like the mega fans of Silent Hill 2 will see that as a drawback. And I understand that. Like I get the feeling because like there are moments of like voice acting lucidity that happen later in the game where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm getting different information just based on the fact that this person now sounds like a regular human being. And just like the grime is scary. It looks frightening to look at on the PlayStation 2, and that's not always the case here. And so like I understand how somebody might see that as a drawback, but I think what they've replaced it with is pretty good voice acting that still sells the story pretty well. And like I'm still getting the same feeling about a lot of these characters in this game that I was in the first one. It's just kind of delivered differently. And I will say that like despite the fact that there isn't this kind of scary layer of disgusting slime all over the video game and just like the rendering is different, it's still plenty gross. Like the visuals of it are still very unsettling, despite the fact it doesn't look kind of like how the PlayStation 2 did. You and I have talked about before how the way that someone is rendered in a PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 way, like it's scary unto itself. Like there is a grotesqueness the farther away you get from what a real human looks like. Yeah. Like that's just scary in general. And so like for James to look kind of weird and off, or like any of the characters, any of the monsters, like that's scary just unto itself. But like James looks like a pretty real guy, and so does Angela. And like all these characters look pretty real. And so that layer of it is removed, but there's still so much frightening shit in here that like I don't feel like I'm being short shrift by the kind of like characteristic of grossness that was on the PlayStation 2 version. I think it's still here.
That's the gross version, the nasty version.
Yeah, it's the nasty version. And like I get it, right? I like I said, I understand where people come from when they might say like that's a drawback for me. In the same way that like, you know, if you glossed up, I don't know, like say you remade like Escape from New York or something like that in 2024, like the movie's going to look differently, and that kind of like feeling that you get from watching like a VHS or something like that isn't there. And so like different things will be communicated to you. But again, for my money, I think they just still nailed what the original game was saying and doing as a whole rather than any individual part, you know? It's like the original game was like a sort of scale, right, of balancing all these different like parts of itself.
Yeah.
And it balanced out at the end of it. And I think in the remake, they've moved things around on the scale, right? Like different things kind of show differently and feel differently, but it's still in balance. Like the whole piece still feels good.
Sure.
And so like, I suspect that this will land differently for a person depending on how much they are attached to any one part of Silent Hill 2, the original, right? If you liked how kind of loose it felt to try and hit an enemy with the board in Silent Hill 2, the original, this one's a little tighter, right? Like you know exactly how long it's going to take to swing your board. You've got a dodge button now.
Ooh.
So you don't like, you can kind of Dark Souls it if you want to.
Everything's a Soulsborne.
It really is. Sometimes it does feel like that when you're going toe to toe with like one of the monsters that's just like legs on top and bottom and it's like back there like putting its fucking dukes up. It does kind of feel like Dark Souls or Fight Night or something like that. But again, like I think it all still adds up to a very good game. I'm going to withhold judgment on the whole thing until I beat it because I'm very interested in how they handle the kind of end of it. Thus far, it's been pretty straight down the middle. Like, yes, this is the story of the first one, but there's some kind of stranger stuff at the end of it with like how the game ends and like what ending you get that if I had to guess, I suspect that they'll probably just do it. Like they'll just do what they did in the original, but I'm also curious if they sanded off any of those edges too. And so we'll see. Also just like shouts out to Pyramid Head again, like just a truly horrifying invention of a video game character. If anybody hasn't heard of this character, you've almost certainly seen him.
Very famous.
A very famous like villain at this point. Like it's bizarre because he's not even like an antagonist. He's just there to like kick your ass. And there's no explanation for why initially.
He's there to fuck shit up and that's it.
Yeah. But God, is he scary. The first time you encounter him is in this like, I guess, apartment building.
Yeah.
And I knew that this was going to happen because we had played it so recently, but like you come upon this area that's like gated off. And if you wait there, you can just see him like standing, looking at you, kind of like waiting for you. So frightening. And I was like, I wonder if they're going to do that. Sure enough, here's my boy Pyramid Head just looking at me.
I'm just here to watch.
It's so scary. And yeah, they just handle him perfectly. He's such a frightening and imposing figure in this game. It's also worth noting that like a lot of the soundtrack, it seems like it's just the soundtrack from the original. Like there are songs that are pretty much bar for bar the same thing. And I really like that. Some of the music there is just like haunting in a very unsettling way of like, why is this the choice that they made for this part?
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that they did that. Not to mention just like you and I play this, the sound design is horrifying. Like there's just like noises always kind of happening and like it's rarely music, you know, it's a lot of the time it's just like something sounds like an alarm or like metal grating against metal or something like that. It's all horrible. And that just really adds to it, especially when you get into the sections of the game where like you're in the kind of like other world that the game sometimes takes you to, where like Silent Hill exists on its own, but every now and then there's like these sections of the game where you go to somewhere else. Again, the game is kind of like, they don't offer a ton of like logical explanation. It's just like sometimes it says like, oh, there's this other place that we can go to. And it's just this like rusty metal, gross, horrific place. And the music there is just so scary, especially whenever Pyramid Head shows up, because like your transition between those places is always, you can hear a like air raid siren going on in the background and that's horrible. Just, yeah, God, it's so so scary. If anybody is interested, you should check out just like stills from the movie Jacob's Ladder, because it looks like the same thing. It's really, really cool. They've said like specifically that's something that has inspired Silent Hill. But God, it's just, it still really hits. It's horrifying to like find yourself in these places and then to come out of them and be like, what does that mean? Like, did I actually leave there, or like, was that real?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And I think that like this sort of towards, nope, never mind. I was going to start talking about the story, but I'm too far into it. The story's good. I'm enjoying it so far.
Good.
And I'm interested with how they eventually kind of conclude where it goes, because it's very interesting.
Nice. Did they give you control of the camera in this one?
I mean, yeah, it's behind you in the way that it is in Resident Evil games, which like, again, is a little less scary because you're very much in control of that.
Yeah.
You know, like you can decide where to look. And in some of the other Silent Hills, you couldn't always decide, which like, I think there are advantages to both. Like we've talked about before, that scene in the beginning of Silent Hill 1 where it's like you're running down an alleyway as Harry Mason and the camera's like following you, then it pulls up into a corner and then twists around and follows you again. Like, God.
So good.
It's really, really good. And you couldn't possibly do that with like a third person unless you changed how it worked. Like you could suddenly change the camera control, but this game doesn't do that. And so there is a little bit more control there. But again, like the stuff that it's showing you is so frightening that like it still works. I personally I like Silent Hill 2 a lot, but if I'm going to knock anything against it is that like I usually don't really know what to do and like don't always know where to go.
Yeah.
And some of that I think is intentional, right? Like, and they still have that here of like a lot of doors are just locked and you're not really going to know where to go, or if you can even go any of those places. And again, like James being a person who is emotionally lost, it's important for you to feel that as a player too, of just like, where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I here even? Like that's an important feeling for you to experience. But I think there is a limit to that. And Silent Hill 2, I think pushes that a little bit for me, especially playing it a couple years ago where like, I don't know this game like the back of my hand. And sometimes I'm just like, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing here, y'all?
Yeah. Pull out the Prima guide.
Yeah. Like I had to check a guide a couple times to be like, what am I actually doing?
Yeah.
Whereas like this one, I think lets you experience some of the kind of disorientation that is important for this game, but also is pretty helpful with like, giving you a little bit of encouragement for where to go, or like, the map is pretty responsive to you finding like a locked door or something. And I think James did this in the first one too, where like he would mark something on the map if it's like, I can't go past here or something like that. But I usually feel like I kind of know where to go here. And so I appreciate that. It's just all a little less fuzzy. And again, I know how that might sound to someone who like likes the grime, but I think in this case, they kind of stuck the landing for me of balancing. I know what to do. I know how to shoot. And also there's still enough terror in this game. Again, it's survival horror. So like, it's not like you have a ton of bullets. You can't just like blast dudes away. You kind of have to be like a little bit sparse with how much you're shooting. But I think they still manage it really well.
Nice.
I will say, especially the boss battles. The boss battles feel a lot better in this game to me than they did in the originals, where it's like a lot of the time I was kind of just blasting and hoping that was like hitting the enemies. It wasn't always clear that was happening. Whereas this one I can see a lot more of like, yes, I hit them, or like I kind of know what to do here, but this is still frightening and that kind of stuff. So I thought those are really elevated.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, to my great surprise, David, this is a good video game.
Love it.
Yeah. I'm quite relieved about this. Obviously, like, I don't think it's a masterpiece in the way that the original was, because the original was the original, and it's like you're experiencing this thing for the first time. But like, it's pretty fucking good. Like, if you've never played Silent Hill 2, so far I think this is a really good way to do it. And then like, if you're crazy about the game, then like play the original, because I think that there is a different experience that you'll get there, and you might enjoy it. Like, you might like it more. But yeah, I love it. It's so bizarre.
Nice.
Yeah. I did not expect this game to be as good as it is.
That's great. That's always so fun, enjoyable.
Me too. I enjoy this quite a bit. Because like, I feel like that's usually the opposite experience, that I'm really excited for something and it kind of flops,
Yeah.
It's pretty rare. And I wonder if that's just like, I have grown used to seeing what marketing looks like and can kind of see from a little ways away if like, that doesn't look too good to me.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad when I'm wrong about that, because then I get to play a cool game.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, David, this will bring me to my Podtimistic thing of the week.
Which is?
It's being scared in a video game. I bet I've brought this up before, But man, is that nice? That's a nice feeling. This is the Silent Hill 2, great one. Resident Evil Village, great one. Both of them do a pretty lengthy beginning where like you're not really sure when the scares are going to happen or start. And that's usually the most scary part of a scary video game to me.
Yeah, the anticipation.
Like, yes, yeah. Because like, 3/4 of the way through the game when I'm fighting enemies that I've been fighting for a couple hours at that point, it's like, this is still frightening and you're a scary monster, but like, I kind of got your number, I'm kind of kicking your ass. But in the beginning, no idea, no clue what's going on. I don't know what's happening. I don't know when the monsters are going to show up or like how or what they will even be. Again, I played Silent Hill 2 before, so it's not like a total surprise, but still very scary anyway. And it's so nice. It's so much fun. I understand why people like don't like scary games, but I think the same reason why it is scarier to play a scary game than it is to play a scary or watch a scary movie sometimes, like the role that agency plays in it all of like, this is much more frightening because I'm in the driver's seat is also why I like to experience it because I feel like there's some kind of control that I can wrestle from the game. Yeah. And it's a very satisfying experience. And I'm always just like, whenever there's something that truly frightens me in a game, I'm always like smiling because I'm like, that's just so good. Like y'all did such a good job scaring me just now.
It is a joy because oftentimes when you get scared in a video game, it's because the game developers really knew how you're going to interact with the environment or like how to really place something somewhere to scare you, a gamer. Like in Resident Evil Village, when you're in the doll maker's house and you walk through a doorway back to kind of where you've already been before, and then you see your supposedly dead wife walking across from the other side of a window, just not making any noise, not bombastically there, but just walking. Yeah. It's terrifying. It's so scary.
It's very scary.
It's so scary. And then you're just like, oh my God, you got me. It's so impressive.
Yeah. I think that like that's why PT is so good, because it is just like you're doing the same thing over and over again, and so it's constantly like setting up expectations so that it can break them and scare you. Like that's just, it's so good that they do that. Of like, I'm just walking down the same hallway and I'm almost playing like, oh, what's different in these pictures game. And so when it's like, you're not really sure, but there's a weird sound and you look up and there's somebody staring at you from like up above the banister. It's like, that's so frightening because that wasn't there before. Or maybe it was and I just didn't notice it. God, yeah, very good. Very good stuff.
So good.
I think something that Resident Evil does really good is balancing between having enemies that will pose a challenge to you that you have to kind of like either avoid or fight. And then also one big nasty dude that's just kind of wandering around that will just fuck you up on sight. Like in 7,
it's one big nasty dude.
Nasty dude. In 7, it's the Baker family, right? So like the dad initially will just beat your ass if he encounters you. But in, 2, it's Mr. X, and 3, it's Nemesis, and then in Village, initially it's Lady D, right? Like,
she beats
or any
ass.
of the sisters. Yeah, like if you encounter her, it's like, oh, that's bad. I need to not be here.
I need to run away. Yeah.
Yes. And so they do a really good balance of like, here's some frightening little like nasty guys that you can shoot and kill if you want to. But like, if you see the bigger one, you need to not be there, which just like creates so much like tension and fear. So it's good. You got anything fueling your sense of optimism, David?
I do.
What is it?
Gaming with your bud and drinking Topo Chicos.
Man, we drank a lot of Topo Chicos in an afternoon.
That was an impressive amount. I was trying to go toe to toe with you, but you just kept on going. I was impressed.
There doesn't seem to be a real limit for the Topos for me. I'm not really sure what that is.
We still haven't found the upper limit to your Topo Chicos?
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah. The Topo limit.
Mine was 5, and then my dog cut you off at 6.
Yeah, I was drinking the 6th one, and your dog said, absolutely not. It's enough.
Knocked it right over.
Yeah.
To be calling you a cab.
To be clear, we drank over the course of a lot of a day. So it's not like we were just like going absolutely ham, but still a fair amount of liquid to be ingesting.
Chase drank 6 packs on his own. That's what we're talking about. Number 6.
Good God, that would be a hospital trip if we had done that.
Yeah. More probably just for like volume of your stomach at that point than anything else.
The human body cannot handle this. Yeah, that was great. That was a great time. I loved doing that.
Good times. Yeah. Good times.
Also, I liked playing a lot of different varieties of quality of video games too.
We had a smorgasbord. It's true.
We had a lot, and some of them were definitely good games, and some of them were just genuinely very fun video games.
Yeah.
I liked being able to experience both the good and the okay.
River City Girls 2.
A really good game.
Good game.
Really good video game. I forgot that's like something we really enjoyed. I think I got to keep playing that because it was great. Yeah, it's great. I love being there. Love playing games with David. Hey,
what's up?
Do you want to move on to our main thing?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Let's do it.
Welcome to Good Games. We talk about a segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear.
Was that the intro?
Now I'm the scarer.
Was that the intro? Do you want that to be the intro? That can be.
No, I didn't even do it well.
It's all right. That's part of the jump scare. Sometimes it's not right.
Sometimes it ain't good.
No, but for real, welcome to Good Games. It's a segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear and gosh, all the things that we love about them. It's Resident Evil season, as we've been speaking about this.
It's spooky season.
And for, I'd say a long time, I've been Resident Evil 6 curious.
Never dipped in.
Yeah, it's well regarded as maybe not the good one. You know?
Yeah.
And I was very curious to see, is that the case? Is it just a product of the time that it was in and maybe it will like not be that way? Or like maybe we'll see different stuff from it.
Sure.
In 2024. And so you and I jumped at this opportunity to check that out. We got suggested to play Resident Evil 6 by listener Dom. Thank you, Dom.
Thanks, Dom.
They had said, I think you'll get the vibe immediately, but if possible, please play this together. It's campy, over-the-top action with multiple playable characters that we never see again in the series, which is true.
It's great.
I think also because they kind of like soft reset the universe a little bit after this.
Yeah.
I actually don't know this. I'm not enough of a Resident Evil lore head to know, like, is this Chris Redfield the same one that shows up in Biohazard and Resident Evil 8? I don't know. Like,
seems like a very different person.
It seems like it, but who knows really? Thank you for your suggestion, Dom. I know you hadn't played this game before.
I had not, no.
I presume you've heard of it,
yes.
Right? Were you sort of aware about the reputation that it had of it being like not so good?
Yeah, I think because I played 4, which was amazing. Loved 4.
Yeah.
Then I played the demo for 5, or I think I might have rented off Gamefly, and I was just not into it at all.
Yeah.
Sent it back and was hoping that Resident Evil 6, when it came out, would be a return to form. I saw, it has Leon S. Kennedy in it again. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
They're gonna retake the thunder that they lost from Resident Evil 4. And then the reviews started coming out, and the word of mouth, I started to hear it, and it was no good. It was no good again.
Yeah.
So I never ended up playing it because I had heard, that it just wasn't a good game from what the outlets and the people were saying back then, so I skipped over it.
Yeah. I think I also kind of had a similar arc with it. I will say the moment that it came out, like that kind of 2012, I'd say to probably through 2014 to 2015, I was just like not playing as many maybe okay games. Mm-hmm. It was when I was just like the most in community college and college to the point where I had like negative money. And so like if a game got below like a 10 or a 9, I was like, I don't know. And Resident Evil 6 was like definitely below that.
Yeah, you're only playing the cream of the crop.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm glad that we checked it out. And as such, David, let me hit you with some hot stats.
Please.
Hot stats.
So Resident Evil 6 came out October 2nd of 2012. You were talking about this, that it seems like there was a long time between this and Biohazard, but like all things considered, it wasn't that long, you know?
Yeah. I think Biohazard's just older than I think it is.
Yeah, it feels like a game that is much more recent, but that came out at the very beginning of 2017.
Wow. Yeah.
And this one was like almost into 2013. So there's really only like a 4-year difference there. And I think part of what is maybe my brain is just sort of broken in the way, but like games like this feel like they come out like a big series. They're like constantly pumping out, especially in that era. It was like Assassin's Creed was just doing a new game every year. So it was fucking Call of Duty and everything. And it was just constantly putting out new games. Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, you know, full disclosure, I think it's wise that they sort of took a second, but like even still the time between, I think this and RE5 was like 3 years. Cause I think that came out in like 2009, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then 5 and 4 was also kind of a little while, not like GTA to GTA 6 levels of length, but like enough time that you miss the series by the time the next one comes out.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was made by Capcom, who of course made the other Resident Evil games and also Dino Crisis.
Ooh, got about Dino Crisis.
Dino Crisis. Capcom is a pretty big company, and so to kind of like ground the style and sort of who's working on this, one of the sort of main producers is Hiroyuki Kobayashi, and he'd been involved in Resident Evil since like Resident Evil 1, like had been there for a long time. Not only that, but was the producer on Resident Evil 4, also Killer 7 and Dragon's Dogma as well.
Killer 7, wow.
Yeah, kind of a wild run
Deep
there.
cut.
But his involvement in 4, I think, will become important when we talk about like why this game is the way it is. Anyway, I have a review from our friends at Jeux Video, which is a video game outlet out of France. Their review, it was originally, in fact, in French. I took it and ran it through Google Translate a number of times, one language into the other to mangle it up real good, which I'll read for you now, David.
Okay, let's hear it.
The first episode of Resident Evil 6 was boring and only brought the rest of the plot. But the rest of the episode was twisting, good, and enjoyable. It respects the series and the great movies from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Oh.
But even though Capcom points in the direction of, quote, scary/scary, unquote, synergies, the title is still pretty cool and a huge step forward. He also hopes to harness the power of events to reach a wider audience and develop meaningful new stories to inspire writing. Actually, Resident Evil 6 beats Resident Evil 5, but some combos weren't as exciting as others, and the strategies weren't always good. And they gave that an 8.5 out of 10, David. They loved it.
8.5 out of 10?
Jeux Video liked this game.
My goodness, they were really into it.
Jeux usually doesn't like the games that we bring to to this part of the show.
Oh.
They liked this one.
They thought it was being, true to the series, true to horror movies of the time.
Yeah.
And they said that they were saying that they thought the Leon portion was boring, but the rest was good.
They said the first episode of Resident Evil 6, so I presume that they mean the Leon part, but I never know, really.
Yeah. Maybe we should play the other parts.
I watched a lot of the other parts, and I will say they're pretty different than the Leon bits.
In a good way?
I'd say so. I think the Ada part specifically is pretty fun. What did you think about this game, David?
Oh boy. I thought that I think the question that both of us were asking when we were playing this game was, why aren't we having more fun?
Yeah, it seems like the game is fun shaped, and I don't know why I'm not experiencing fun at that very moment.
Yeah, it checks a lot of boxes, right? It's got pretty decent gunplay. It's got pretty well thought out and considered like art direction and levels and enemies, right?
Yeah.
Lots of different enemies.
Like zombies.
Yeah.
Zombies are in this one, which is cool.
Zombies are in this one, which are always cool. But I think it felt like it was chasing trends. Instead of being a trendsetter, it was chasing trends in this one. Like it felt like it was trying to have gunplay similar to like an Uncharted. It felt like it was trying to have zombie types similar to a Left 4 Dead, cover shooter mechanics like a Gears of War. So it felt a little uninspired as a result. But then we decided just turn your brain off and shoot, and that made it much more enjoyable. Much more enjoyable. If you just turn your brain off and shoot, you'll be okay. If you play it as an action shooter with like a slightly spooky skin on it, it's decent. It's not bad. Right, it's pretty good in that regard. Actually, it
really requires you to not think about it as a Resident Evil game.
Yeah. What Joe Video is saying about it being true to the history of the franchise, I don't know if I agree with.
It's a little surprising there. Yeah,
I'd say it definitely is the most out of step with the rest of the franchise as far as Resident Evil games that I've played personally.
Yeah, it's bizarre, and sort of what I was alluding to earlier is that like the game was on this upward tick of more action in its games since pretty much 4. I think like 1 through 3 were all pretty similar, including Code Veronica, like pretty similar games, and I think they strike a very similar balance between action and horror. But 4 was the first one that was like, we're gonna maybe make a little bit more of an action game.
Yeah,
and they were rewarded in spades for that, right? Like that game is incredible.
Yeah,
and like everybody loved it essentially, and they were like, "Oh shit, what did we just do?"
They've remade it like 8 times.
Made it like 8 times. I sort of appreciate that they're just like, there is nowhere that you can't play Resident Evil 4.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty nice.
It's available as hell, which I appreciate. But and like, not to mention, they're like almost played a part in like inventing the third-person shooter game. Like
that placement of the camera was very inventive for the time, actually.
Yeah, and so like I'm I'm not surprised at all that they started to run with that idea and be like, maybe this is what the series has to be now. And I think Resident Evil 5 like kind of pushes it, and I think Resident Evil 6 is just the end conclusion of that thought. Maybe we need to make this more actiony, and this is that game, right? Like, this is what if Resident Evil 4 was turned up to 11, and like like I said, or like you said, there are fun parts to that. I think just blasting zombies is pretty fun still. Whatever reason, the melee combat is quite fun.
The melee is really good. I forgot about that. That's probably the best part of the game.
Yeah, it's very silly, and especially in co-op, because you can just like really gang up on a zombie. Like if we both go over there and start punching, the zombies just evaporates.
It oddly kind of almost feels like a wrestling game at that point.
Yes, especially when like you sneak up on a zombie and just
suplex them into the ground and they disintegrate immediately.
Leon Kennedy grabs the zombie's head and then just jumps forward with their head in his hand and just smashes it on the ground when they land.
So good.
It's over the top and ridiculous. And like that, those parts of the game I enjoy quite a bit in a way, because like they're still in touch with the campy ridiculousness of Resident Evil. And I think it's when they start to be like, what if we need to be Call of Duty or Gears of War, that it's suddenly like, I don't know, there's a cover mechanic that you and I like, they told us how to do it in the beginning, and then about 3 hours later we were like, oh yeah, there's a cover mechanic.
Yeah, it doesn't need it at all, really.
No, they're zombies. They're not shooting at you except for literally one of them.
Yeah.
I have some like, I dug around to kind of see like, what did Capcom and the producers of this game, like how did they think about this game, and like what was going on in their heads with it. There was this interview with one of the producers of RE6, Resident Evil 6. I don't know why it sounded like I said RE6.
RE6? That is a strong name.
Resident Evil. Humping.
I thought you said Ari, like ARI.
There's an interview with producer Hirabayashi, and it was with IGN. IGN asked the question, fans of Resident Evil tend to focus on the tone of each game and whether it focuses more on action, more on horror, more on survival. The trailer seems to suggest you're trying to do all of these things. Can you discuss your philosophy when it comes to this? Are you trying to balance all three ideas? Producer Hirabayashi said, with the announcement trailer, we have shown everyone a glimpse of the game's concept, which we hope came across to all those who have viewed it. With quote, ultimate horror entertainment, unquote, in mind, we hope to provide all the fans out there with an exquisite balance of all the things that people love about the series. So of course we're focusing on horror and gameplay aspects in RE6. And so it kind of felt like they're just like, we're going to do all of it all the time, rather than like, we're going to do a little bit here and there. There was also this interview that Masachika Kawada, another producer for the game, did with Gama Sutra in, I think it was 2012. And he was explaining like why they are pushing a little bit more towards action. And he said, quote, looking at the marketing data for survival horror games, the market is small compared to the number of units Call of Duty and all these action games sell, he said. A survival horror Resident Evil doesn't seem like it'd be able to sell all those kinds of numbers. And so the implication with a lot of that interview was him saying like, horror is too small of a genre for us. We need to go bigger.
Sure.
Which like, I think in hindsight, that's obviously incorrect. Like horror games are not a small genre. And I think honestly bigger than ever. Like, you see these like clippable horror games just like constantly going viral, and like a big category of game streaming is horror streaming. And so like, I think that's just a kind of a bad read about it. But I understand in 2012, like Call of Duty was just the only game in the room as far as like oxygen goes. You know?
True.
And so it's like, I think there's evidence here of them kind of losing touch with what was important about the series and kind of just being like, well, the market's not big enough for scary games, so we're not going to make the scary game, you know? Like we're just going to do the action thing.
That makes sense.
And so like, it like logically, I get it. It also is just like kind of creatively like leaving behind the thing that made the game cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which I think you feel like when you and I are playing it, we're like, where's the tension and the scares and anything like that?
It feels like it has an identity crisis.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty concise way to put it. Yeah. It seems like it's doing a lot and not really doing any one thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think you nailed it when you said it felt like you were playing House of the Dead as opposed to Resident Evil. Which I think is a pretty damning statement.
Yeah, and like I like House of the Dead, but it's a very simple game.
Yeah, it's not what you're coming to a Resident Evil for.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, if we're looking at like what this game does well and like what we like about it, I think I have to look in the opposite direction of what I normally look to Resident Evil for, you know? Because like the suplexing is very fun. The combat is like silly, and I wouldn't say like perfect, but still like it's fun shooting zombies. Like I can't deny you there.
Yep.
And I will say like there are set pieces in this game that I think work really well. Like the section where you're like kind of defending that like gun store in the very beginning of the game is Leon.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And like the next bit where you're trying to like hold off enough time outside of the church.
Yeah.
That's also pretty good. Like I think that those like bits are interesting and always also very reminiscent of like the stuff in Resident Evil 4 where it's like you're trying to just like survive for a little while. That like stuff works. It's just also very uncharacteristic for like what I'm looking for in a Resident Evil game.
Exactly. Yeah. But the thumbs up animations were top notch.
Man.
My goodness.
I think the game was intended to be able to be played like online so you could communicate a little bit with your partner.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it is like, you know, come over here or enemies over there or like wait or something like that. But one of the like emotives, what's the word I'm looking for? Like emotes. Yeah. One of the emotes you can do is like a thank you or a good job. And they like your character just gives such a hearty thumbs up.
They like whip into it. Like bam.
Yeah. It's a very powerful thumb and it feels great whenever that was going on. You and I like whenever the story was happening behind us would just be doing good job. Nice. All right. Good job. Like to each other as we're sort of standing waiting for the game to continue.
Yeah, the in-game communication was fun to just mess around with.
Yeah, a very fun co-op game in that way.
Yeah, I think that's something that is very laudable about the game is like how much it leans into co-op.
Yeah, it is bizarre.
Not a lot of games I think are brave enough to do that. And I think this one might have been a little bit even ahead of its time because I feel like at this point, co-op was somewhat falling out of favor because it was so much more of like an online game space PvP situation. And they just went full for cooperative multiplayer. And, you know, I think I appreciate that now more, especially when I have someone that I can play it with on the couch.
Yeah,
so it's just much more enjoyable than doing it over the internet. But yeah, I think that some of the levels were pretty cool with 2 players.
Yeah, like I rarely will knock a game for trying something weird. You know, I can't say that it succeeded all the time, but I think it is an interesting idea to like take the concept of like, what were those games like Kane and Lynch or
Army of
Two. Yeah. Where it's like the game is intentionally built to be played by 2 people and like you could play it on your own if you want to, but it's like so much more enjoyable to play it as a duo. And even like something like It Takes Two, where it is so focused on being a co-op game and oftentimes you're doing different shit, which I love that in a co-op game where they kind of separate you momentarily and they're like, you do this part and you do that part. That's great. I really like that.
Yeah.
Rather than just kind of like running around with each other and like being back to back while you're shooting, although that is still fun
cool.
too.
Doing action dives. I will say though that their decision on how to set up the split screen multiplayer
oh my god
is baffling.
So strange. They cut off a certain portion of the screen.
Yeah, and they
on either side.
And they offset it as well.
Yes.
So like my top part of the TV was the screen didn't take up the game didn't take up the full top half of the TV. It was like up and to the right and the bottom half was down to the left, where the actual game was happening.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was like a fifth of the top part of the screen was blank. And so was a fifth of the bottom left part of the screen too. So strange. Like I kept trying to think like, why? What would convince them to do that? And I just don't know.
Why?
Because like maybe just like the angle of the game is like the viewing angle is such that like they need to cut that part of it off. But man, like most of the time we were playing, we just were like passing the controller back and forth.
Yep.
Because it was like, I can see so much more. And you have a pretty big television. So like,
I do. Yeah.
It was not like we were hurting for space.
Not at all.
Yeah, very, very strange decision. I don't know what's going on there.
My gamer conspiracy theorist self comes out and says they just wanted you to buy 2 copies of the game.
I think they would have just not added it local. Like this was an era, especially like the Xbox One era, where they're like, yeah, you can't like trade games. Like there was some weird shit going on. And there are games that are like, you can't play co-op locally. You can only do it over the internet. I figured they would have just done that if they were truly like, nah, fuck the fans. We don't want them to do this.
Yeah.
So strange. I just don't know. But maybe you're right. I have no idea. I didn't work there. The lore goes pretty nutty. I read the plot today.
Let's go wild.
Shit is way over the top. It's so ridiculous.
In a good way?
Depending on how you feel about it being over the top. I think that most of the other Resident Evil games strike a much better balance between ridiculousness and seriousness, whereas this one is just kind of over the top. It reminds me of like a quintet game, like Illusions of Gaia or Terra Enigma or something like that, where the plot just goes fucking nutty with it. It's so crazy. But I thought it was fun. There's like a lot of connections to other games, and so you may need to be a little bit of a Resident Evil lore freak to really get it all. But, you know, there's like clones and stuff, which I think is pretty neat.
Oh, Ada clone?
Ada clone, yeah.
There you go. Now you know.
Yeah, now you know. The Wesker's son is also in this one, which I didn't know.
Son of Wesker.
Son of Wesker, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Who is played by Troy Baker.
He's everybody. He's everywhere.
He is everywhere.
He's me.
Matt Mercer's also plays Leon, which is such a choice.
Matt Mercer is Leon.
Matt Mercer's Leon. Yeah.
Wow.
He did pretty good. Like, I usually hear Matthew Mercer and I'm like, that is so Matt Mercer. I hear every inch of this dude's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think I knew it was him, but still, it was like, that sounds like Leon. This, like, it makes sense coming out of his mouth. Also, Leon's like 40, 50 at this point. Like, he's not a young guy.
Man.
Yeah.
He's getting up there. He's not the rookie cop anymore.
No. Still looks great, though. Still really
Still beautiful. The one other thing that I would just want to touch on real quick. It's not cool, Resident Evil, to objectify an unconscious woman.
Oh,
that wasn't cool.
Yeah, why did they do this?
That was not good. That was the worst thing about the game.
Yeah, that whole section was so strange. It was like you are playing as one of the kind of like newcomers.
Helena,
yeah.
with Leon. Helena. With a H.
And she drags Leon to this like place seemingly to save her sister. And
the first time they meet, she's like, I'll give you a lead on this if you come with me to the cathedral. And it's like 5 hours later and you're like 10 miles underneath the earth and you find her sister.
Yeah. And she like picks her up and is like, I got to take you out of here. And for just whatever reason, her sister still got on this little nightie and is wearing like underwear that, you know, just has a little bit of butt.
Yeah.
And, you know, the game is oftentimes making you jump around and move. And of course, you know, the butt be showing. Mm-hmm. And just like, why do we got to be like this?
Yeah. It's just like if you go to like break a box to get something, you move in such a way that it shows the butt.
It doesn't got to be like this, guys.
No. It could have been any other thing that she's wearing, but it was this.
Mercifully, the other Resident Evils so far seem to be hornier in a more responsible way, at the very least.
You can be horny, just be responsible.
Just be normal about it, you know? Like, don't show me the butt of an unconscious woman. Like, give me a big, scary dommy mommy who's gonna, like, cut my hand off at a moment's notice.
She sure is.
That works.
Yeah.
Lady D works, but the unconscious lady does not work.
Mm-hmm.
Be normal.
Yeah.
And like an 8-foot woman. That's
an 8-foot woman vampire who's lived for however long.
That rocked.
rocked Chase's world.
Yeah, that was great. But Resident Evil 6 kind of missed with that one.
Yeah, definitely missed on that.
Yeah.
Unequivocally.
But hey, the action parts were fun. Yeah. And the shooting was good.
Yeah.
I liked all that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. I agree with Dom that like it's just so over the top in the moments that are, and that is the stuff that makes it special. Mm-hmm. Also just kind of like an almost Avengers level of characters in this game.
Sure. It's a crossover event.
Yeah, that's fun. That's cool. And especially in a series that like is noted usually for like who are the two characters that are going to be in this one. Mm-hmm. You know, like Code Veronica had both Chris and Claire in it. Fucking 3 had Jill and Carlos, and then 2 was Leon and Claire again. Mm-hmm. And then just like there's always these like pairs going through it, and so it's cool to like have a bunch of them meet up like this and be like, yeah, we're all on this one right now.
Yeah,
I think that's just very cool. It's weirdly a pretty character-driven series, despite like not really having, you know, super deep characters or anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They like their lineages.
Yes. Yeah, it is cool. I am glad that they sort of like just made a new guy with Ethan Winters, though.
Yeah, he's a fun character.
He's a fun character. He also is very Resident Evil, like so ridiculous and over the top in a way that I'm like, That's good. I like this.
Yeah.
He's a silly, silly man.
And takes things in stride very well. He's very resilient emotionally.
Yeah, like he's getting pretty obliterated by the zombies, and it's just like, oh, that sucked, and then just kind of continues forward.
Sees horrors beyond imagination. It's just like, man, well, Mondays, am I right?
Ain't that just the way? Shouts out to Ethan Winters, a very regular video game protagonist. Well, cool. Dom, thank you for suggesting this game. It was a fun excuse to look at a very strange entry in an otherwise like just an amazing series of games.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Hello, gamers. It's me, Chase. If you want to check out what else we got going on, you can go to podtimism.com. It has a bunch of stuff. It's got links. You can check to see if we've like played or talked about a game that you like before. And go over to Games Mentioned and type in Mega Man Legends. Only 3 episodes. That seems like a dereliction of duty on my part.
Yeah, that is not an impressive number.
No. Oh man, the last time we talked about it was episode 126. It's almost been 100 episodes. I got to play Mega Man Legends right now, David.
What's it on? Can I play it?
Mega Man Legends, it's on PlayStation 1 and N64. So if you want to download an emulator, you got to be prepared for how bad the controls are. You got to be ready for it.
I'm never ready for bad controls.
It's going to feel bad. Oh, wow. The first time we talked about it was episode 23, which I think we did like a good game section on, but that's the invention of Dobby and the basketball ghoul.
Wow. Episode 23.
That's what I'm saying. That feels like critical lore.
That ghoul is still going strong.
Yeah, for real. He's still here. You can also suggest a game like Dom did if you want us to play something that you like. We've recently had some developments in PlayStation 3 technology, so hopefully we'll be able to play a few more of those. I will say, for anybody hoping for X-Blades, there's been a few of you. I'm sorry, we're working on it. It's a hard game to emulate.
We're in the lab. We're working on it.
Yeah, but there's a couple of other PS3 games that we have opened up for play, so we're checking those out. You can also, on that website, find a link to our Discord. We are part of the Worst Garbage podcast network, podcast of other cool podcasts. No, a network of other cool podcasts. And yeah, you can come and hang out in that Discord, and you can check out other shows like Can't Let It Go, .zip, Frog of the Week, Girl Mode, Paws and Claws, Into the Aether, and Brendan Bigley's blog Wavelengths as well, which is great. Very happy for Girl Mode right now. The Mets are doing very well. And I know that Willow Rose is a big Mets head. So shout out to Girl Mode. Very happy for you. I really hope that the Mets go all the way this year.
As someone who also is a fan of a sports team that had a many years long drought from the playoffs.
Holy
I get
moly,
it.
yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, it had been a unconscionable amount of time that the Kings were not in the playoffs. And even just making it there, I was like, this is miraculous. This is incredible.
So yeah, go Mets.
Yeah, also go Mets. Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
Gotta love the Mets. If you want to help out the show, you can do a couple of things. One of them is reviewing the show on some sort of podcatcher app like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts or whatever. Thank you to anybody who does that. Appreciate you. Or show it to a friend. If somebody's like, man, I just wish there was like maybe better coverage of video games that wasn't such a bummer. Then like, hey, how about us? Or really any of the shows on the network, but like, you know, maybe you like this one a lot and you suggest it first. And then you're also like, I have a suite of video game podcasts for you.
We come with a posse.
Yeah, it's true. What else? 2 things. I'm going to thank 2 people. One, first, Scout Wilkinson. Thank you for your art on this podcast.
Scout
Rocks. It's good as hell. Check out her stuff at ko-fi.com/humblegoat. That's where her work lives. And also, the second person to thank is you, listener. Thank you for listening to this podcast. We appreciate you doing it.
Yeah.
We love making it. Like, again, I would have gone to Santa Barbara and hung out with David, and we would have played almost exactly the same amount of video games.
Yeah.
However, it's fun to have a little bit of structure around it and to, just play these fucking games. It's great. So thank you for listening. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
David, do you have any gaming wisdom for me? Close us out.
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
If you get injured, just splash some liquid on it. Splash some chemicals on there. That's going to fix it up right away. No problem.
Ethan Winters really has it figured out. He just sort of puts together, what is it, like chemicals and gunpowder or something like that?
It's called chem fluids. Chem fluid is what it's called.
Disambiguated stuff.
Yes. Chemical. That's it.
Yeah, just pours it on the wound and it fixes him right up. The red around the edge of the screen goes away and he's like, wow, I'm feeling great now.
Feeds the mold.
He manages. Yeah, he's got a little mold power, so that's probably going to throw a bit of a complicated wrench into this whole equation. But, he put his hand back on.
Sure did. Doctors hate this one easy trick.
Doctors hate this one easy chemical fluid that will heal your whole deal. It's just apple cider vinegar. That's what he's pouring on himself.
It's just Romanian grade apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, they got the good stuff over there.
It's been fermented for 20 years in the cold mountains of Romania.
Romania got mountains?
I mean, according to Resident Evil, it does.
Yeah, I guess it does take place there, huh?
Then we looked that up. That's why I'm saying Romania.
Carpathian Mountains. What's going on, Romania? These are pretty. Oh, it's a big mountain range.
Yeah, the Carpathians. You didn't know about the Carpathians? I knew about the Carpathians.
Yeah, I mean, you're an educated boy. I don't know about
I've never
mountains.
heard about the Carpathian Mountains in my life.
They got castles in these mountains.
Yeah,
That's cool. Man, we ain't got no castles and no mountains over here.
Isn't that where Dracula's from?
I think so. Yeah.
Spooky.
That is the trade-off. You either get no castle, you get wolves in a valley, or you get a cool castle, but you get Dracula.
Pick your poison.
Pick your poison, baby.
Valley Wolves of Dracula Castle. What can you do?
What can you do?
One or the other.
Can't live with the Dracula. Can't live without him. Am I right?
I mean, what about the third option, lake with a big fish?
Lake with big fish is cool, but sometimes fish bad. We've learned that lesson from both Resident Evil 4 and Village.
Look, that fish in number 8 is bad, but
yeah.
He is so goofy. I don't understand a single word this thing is saying to me. I have no idea any of the dialogue that this creature has said to me because it's just incomprehensible.
Yeah, maybe you get lucky and big fish bad, but big fish funny.
Big fish funny. Big fish is a goofy goober.
But also, let me kick it back over to Vampire. Vampire also sometimes sound funny.
This is true. Not in this game, but in sometimes vampires writ large. Yes, they sound a little funny. Or are you just making fun of people's accents, Jace?
No, I'm making fun of how when you get teeth that are sharp and stick out of your mouth, it makes you talk a certain way.
You're making fun of people with overbites. Yeah.
Oh, God. Hey, you reminded me, though, that vampires in this one are big and scary.
No. It's too late. We're going to have to cancel you now.
I was going to talk about Dommy Mommies again and bring it all back around.
That's the only way to solve this problem is more Dommy Mommies.
Yeah. That's what it feels like to me.
Ain't nothing wrong with a dominating mama.
A dominating mamana.
Mamana? Mamanatrix?
Hamana. Okay, we gotta go.
Hamana matrix. Anyways.
Bye.
Bye.
TWG, the worst garbage, online.